Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesh Shunyavadi Paschadishtar. So we are talking about Bhagavad Gita, chapter 1 to 6. Summary of Bhagavad Gita of chapter 1 to 6. That's what we are talking today. You see, Bhagavad Gita has 18 chapters, we all know that. And Bhagavad Gita has 3 sections, 3 hexards you can say. Just like in music we have octaves. Similarly, in Gita we have, actually नीचे से होता है हमेशा angle, ऊपर से नहीं होता. Similarly in Bhagavad Gita we have hexards. So first to 6 chapter, and then we have middle 6 chapters and the last 6 chapters. So traditionally the Acharyas, Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas, they have divided Gita into 3 parts. And first 6 chapters are about Karma Yoga, second 6 chapters are about Bhakti Yoga, and third 6 chapters are about Jnana Yoga. That's a general division. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes that middle 6 chapters, which are Bhakti Yoga, they are like jewel. And the first 6 chapters and the last 6 chapters, they are like box. The lid, the 2 lids of one box, which actually protects the jewel, which is Bhakti Yoga. Now this is a traditional understanding of Bhagavad Gita. But Srila Prabhupada, he has done something unique. He has done something unique in Bhagavad Gita. And what he has done is he has actually translated all the 6 chapters from a Krishna conscious point of view. So Srila Prabhupada has taken Bhakti Yoga also as action in Krishna consciousness. We'll see. We'll just see when we'll discuss. And Jnana Yoga as knowledge in Krishna consciousness. So what he has done is he has actually translated Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga and Jnana Yoga as Krishna consciousness. And this is not Srila Prabhupada, I mean to say, it's not just Srila Prabhupada's speculation, it's not like that. This is the opinion of Madhvacharya. We belong to Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, and this is what Madhvacharya's opinion is. If you read, so there is a book, Synthesis of Bhagavad Gita by B.N.K. Sharma, and he writes in that book that what Madhvacharya has done, no previous Acharya has done when writing commentary on Bhagavad Gita. He has synthesized, he has linked Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga into one, and from a devotional point of view. So if Srila Prabhupada and even Bhaktivinoda Thakur takes that viewpoint, although many of the previous Acharyas, they take Karma Yoga as different, Jnana Yoga as different, Bhakti Yoga as different. But we'll talk what Srila Prabhupada has done in Bhagavad Gita. So that when you read Bhagavad Gita, you will understand what Prabhupada is writing in his purports. Now when you talk about first 6 chapters, it is Karma Yoga. Now what is Karma Yoga? If, according to Srila Prabhupada, karma means action, yoga means linking. Any action which helps us to link with God, that is Karma Yoga. So all actions are not Karma Yoga. So any action which helps to link us with God, that is devotional action. Obviously, that is devotional action. Because that action is helping us to link with God. Simple. It's as simple as that. Okay, so in that sense, Karma Yoga means action which helps us to link with God. That is very important to understand, because any action which helps us to link with God, that is devotional action. Simple. So Srila Prabhupada, that's why many times he writes Karma Yoga as Krishna conscious activities. Prabhupada writes that as simple as that, Krishna conscious activities. So keeping this in mind, we have to understand first 6 chapters. Now what's happening in first 6 chapters? The first chapter is, I think what's the first chapter? Observing the armies on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. That's the first chapter, chapter 1. Now that chapter is very important, because that is a chapter which forms the basis of entire Bhagavad Gita. Although many devotees, they don't give so much importance to chapter 1, but actually that is a chapter which defines what Bhagavad Gita is going to give us. Now Bhagavad Gita, what Krishna is trying to do in Bhagavad Gita, observing the armies on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. It's all about observation. Now Pandavas and Kauravas, they are facing each other on battlefield of Kurukshetra. Krishna is also there. Pandavas, the leader of Pandavas is, at least in the battlefield, it's Arjuna, everybody knows that, and he denies to fight. And Duryodhana on the other hand, he wants to fight. And Krishna here, he also wants the fight to happen. But the difference between Krishna's observation and Duryodhana's observation is very different. Krishna wants to fight because he is seeing, he is observing that this fight will lead to establishment of dharma. But Duryodhana wants to fight because he is seeing that if I fight, I will win victory and kingdom and name and fame. You see, so all the three people have different observations. Arjuna's observation of his relatives is leading him to sorrow, frustration, despair. And Krishna's observation leads him to conclusion that we should fight for the benefit of humanity. And Duryodhana's observation leads him to the conclusion that we should fight so that we should not lose our name and fame. It's all the three people have different observations. That is observing the armies on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. The idea is, everything is about how you observe, how you perceive this life, and by that perception you will form a conclusion. So by that perception you have a conclusion in your life, and then you lead your life according to that conclusion. Simple. So what Krishna is trying to do is, Krishna is trying to change the perception, the observation of Arjuna. Krishna is trying to convince Arjuna, Arjuna, you observe the whole situation as I observe. If you observe according to yourself, then you will follow into sorrow and wrong conclusions. That's what Krishna is trying to convince Arjuna. Krishna is trying to change the perception of Arjuna. And that is why the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita is, surrender unto me. Surrender your will unto me. Think like me. That's what the idea of Bhagavad Gita is. So you see, first chapter is so important. The first chapter helps you to understand that at the present stage, when we are not connected to Krishna, when we are not Krishna consciousness, we are self-conscious and we are observing the entire world and ourselves according to our own viewpoint. And that is why, like Arjuna, we will fall into sorrow and despair. But if we do devotion, we surrender to Krishna, then we will start seeing this world as Krishna is seeing. That's very important. This is what is Bhagavad Gita all about. After reading Bhagavad Gita, what will happen? For example, somebody asks, what will happen after reading Bhagavad Gita? Well, simple answer is, after reading Bhagavad Gita, you will think like God. You will not become God, but you will think like God. You will not do what you will. You will in inverted commas, what you want. You will not do what you want. You will do what Krishna wants. Or in one line, after reading Bhagavad Gita, what will happen is, something is happening. Somebody has to see 𝗙𝗪 𝗪𝗲. So after reading Bhagavad Gita, what will happen is, you will see this word through the eyes of Krishna. You will not see this word through your own eyes. That is the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita. So first chapter is, you are seeing this life by your own eyes. And when you read through Bhagavad Gita, in the end, your mind will be trained to see the entire situation through the eyes of Krishna. That is called Krishna consciousness. When you start seeing everything as Krishna sees, you are Krishna conscious. Like for example, an ordinary person sees this material world as full of enjoyment and as permanent. But Krishna sees this material world as full of sorrows and impermanent. So 𝗙𝗪𝗪𝗀𝗀𝗀. So after reading Bhagavad Gita, you will also start seeing it like this, isn't it? Or you will try to see it as 𝗙𝗂𝗪𝗲𝗪. So that's why first chapter is very important. First chapter helps us to understand where we are. And then when you know where you are, then you can, and then you know where you want to go, then you can decide the path. If you don't know where you are, then how do you decide the path and what do you do? So that's chapter 1. Can you just give me, I'll just close it. So chapter 2 is Sankhya. So what's chapter 2? Summary of Bhagavad Gita. So chapter 2 is basically talking about the knowledge of soul and body. Why? Because now Krishna has a task with Arjuna. Krishna wants to convince Arjuna to fight, or in other words, Krishna wants to convince Arjuna, you do what I want and you should think like me. You don't want to fight, but I want you to fight, so you should fight. That's his task. So he wants to change the entire perception of Arjuna. Now how to do that? So for that, first he has to start from basics. And the basics is knowledge of soul and body. So he gives the knowledge of soul. And also he also gives the knowledge of soul because Arjuna is because Arjuna is full of sorrow and frustrated. So the knowledge of soul will help Arjuna to come out of frustration, isn't it? Come out of frustration and come out of sorrow. When he will understand, I am soul, I am not this body, these people are not my relatives, they are just relatives of my body, but my soul has nothing to do with this. So why I am becoming so unhappy, all these things. So second chapter is knowledge of soul and body, largely. So you see the point, spirituality, any spiritual process begins with this knowledge that you are not this body, you are soul. Without this knowledge, any spiritual process is zero. I mean to say, so there are many spiritual organizations and they say close your eyes and meditate, and that is spirituality. They are all bogus because you first have to have knowledge of body and soul. All these spiritual practices are like monkey's practice, Prabhupada used to say. That's all, it's useless. That's chapter 2. Then chapter 3. Chapter 3, so after you understand your soul and not this body, the obvious question is, what is the, what can I say? So what is the, so what does soul, function. So what is the function of soul? That's the idea. So what is the function of soul? When you're soul, then you have, okay, if I am soul, so what is the function of soul? What soul does? If you are soul, what we are supposed to do when I know I am soul? If I am body, then function of body is to eat and sleep and whatever. What's the function of soul? Then there's the third chapter, Karma Yoga. Now Karma Yoga teaches us that the function of soul is to act. Karma. Karma means action. The function of soul is not to meditate. That's not the function of soul. The function of soul is not to sit in one place. No, function of soul is to act. Srila Prabhupada says, when the body is so active, you can imagine how much active the soul will be, who is trapped in the body. That's what Prabhupada says in Bhagavad Gita. So that's where third chapter, Karma. The function of soul is to act, but act for whom? For Krishna, Karma Yoga. Simple. Action and Krishna Consciousness. So what's the third chapter's name in English? Karma Yoga, isn't it? Karma Yoga. Action and Krishna Consciousness. That's Karma Yoga. Simple. See? So that's the third chapter. It's a very important chapter that you see, it's so important. Spirituality in modern age, people think spirituality in modern age is to feel nature, is to feel yourself. That's very popular in America. Is to close your eyes and then become lost in some oblivion, in some ethereal something, I don't know, some kind of euphoria, something. But that's not spirituality. Spirituality begins with action. Very important. So there are many Buddhists who say spirituality means just to sit motionless. Motionless? You have to sit motionless. Don't move. Just sit. And the teacher will stand with a stick. And as soon as you move, he will just beat with the stick because you're not supposed to move. So even if a housefly comes, if a fly comes and sits on your nose, you should not just move. You should tolerate it. That's what the point is. So, but that's all bogus. That's all useless. That's third chapter. And then fourth chapter is, what's the fourth chapter? Transcendental knowledge. Jnana Yoga. Transcendental knowledge. So when you act for Krishna, then what happens is, then you will get, then slowly by action, by acting for Krishna, you will get knowledge. You will get some realizations. So like for example, when you start doing something, then you get experience. Am I right? Then you get experience. If you start working, if you start working in farms, then you get experience of farms. If you start working for cows, then you get experience with cows. So that's fourth chapter, transcendental knowledge. When you start acting for Krishna, you start getting experience, you start getting realizations and knowledge. Knowledge of Krishna. You are working for Krishna, you start getting knowledge of Krishna. You start getting knowledge of service. You are working for Krishna, that's called service. And by working and by serving Krishna, you will start understanding what is service. That's the idea. That's fourth chapter, knowledge. What is service? What is Krishna? Who is Krishna? You will start understanding this. That is called transcendental knowledge. And then when you get knowledge, then the fifth chapter, what's fifth chapter? Action in Krishna consciousness. Then you become Krishna conscious. Am I right? You get knowledge of Krishna, start getting knowledge of Krishna and experience what is service. You start becoming conscious of Krishna. And then you act with that consciousness. You don't stop action. It's not that you stop action. Am I right? So if suppose you're working for cows, you're taking care of cows, then you start getting realization, then you start getting experience how to take care of cows. And then you take care of cows much better and you act more. Similarly, fifth chapter is action in Krishna consciousness. Now in third chapter you have acting but without knowledge. When you get knowledge through action, now in fifth chapter you are acting with knowledge. And that's the advanced stage. You're acting without knowledge and then you're acting with knowledge. So there is a difference there. So you see, these chapters are like ladders, the steps of ladders, and you're advancing one by one. You can read entire Bhagavad Gita, but it depends on which chapter you are stuck. That's the point. So fifth chapter is you are now acting with knowledge, and that is very important. If you're stuck up in third chapter, you're simply acting without knowledge, and that's mechanical action. If you're stuck there, if you're stuck up in the fourth chapter, then you are getting knowledge, but you're not acting. So then you become scholar. The fifth chapter is you combine third and fourth chapter and you act with knowledge. After getting knowledge, don't stop action. That's the idea. After getting knowledge and realizations, don't stop action. Still keep on acting for the benefit of mankind and for the benefit of your soul. You see, that's very important because people think after I become advanced, after I get realizations, now I don't need to act. Acting for services, new devotees will do for me, not so much important. But no, all services are equally important at early stage or at advanced stage. But the difference is, initially you're acting without knowledge, afterwards you're acting with knowledge. So there is a... So there is a Zen saying. So there is a Zen saying. It is said. So one Zen master, he said that that when you are new, you broom the floor and you cook, you sleep, and then you get up and do meditation. And when you become advanced, then you broom the floor, you cook, you sleep, and then you get up and do meditation. The same thing. Now, what's the difference? The difference is, initially you're acting without knowledge, afterwards you're acting with knowledge. That's the difference, that's all. You're new, you chant Hare Krishna, distribute books, eat prasad, sleep. When you become advanced, you chant Hare Krishna, distribute books, eat and sleep. What's the difference? Difference is, now you're acting with knowledge. Difference is, initially you are on 3rd chapter and later you are on 5th chapter. That's a big difference. Externally you can't see, but internally there's a difference. That's the idea. That's the 5th chapter. Now 6th chapter is Dhyana Yoga. So what's in English? Dhyana in English. 6th chapter is Dhyana Yoga. Now what is 6th chapter teaching us? 6th chapter, Krishna says, well, there are Dhyana yogis who do asana, pranayam and all these things. But Krishna says the idea is, you don't follow the process of Dhyana Yoga. Don't do pranayam, asana and all these things. But what you do is, you take the principle of the process. The process is yam, niyam, asana, pranayam, dharana, dhyan, samadhi, ashtanga yoga. But the principle is focus. Dhyan means focus. So we can take the principle, leave the process. That is intelligence. So what we do is, 6th chapter, what Krishna is telling, you do action in Krishna consciousness with focus and attention. Don't lose your attention, otherwise you'll fall down. That's the whole idea. Do devotion with attention, and that's why there is an offense. Last offense, what's that? What's the last offense? In English, what do we say? To be inattentive while chanting. It's attentiveness, you see. So 6th chapter Krishna, I mean to say for devotees, what's the conclusion of 6th chapter? For devotees, conclusion of 6th chapter is, take the principle, leave the process. Be alert while doing devotion. Otherwise Maya will make you fall down. Be focused, be attentive. So that is called Dhyana Yoga. Now, that is for 6 chapters. And then when you do action in Krishna consciousness with focus, with attention, with alertness, then you enter the 7th chapter, which is, what is the 7th chapter? Knowledge of the Absolute Truth. Then you enter 7th chapter. Then you start getting realizations about knowledge of Absolute Truth. That some other speaker is going to talk about later in this Gita Amrit classes. But that's what about 6th chapter, and I hope I made it easy. Now when you read Srila Prabhupada purports, you will understand how Prabhupada and what Prabhupada is writing. How Prabhupada has translated all the chapters of Bhagavad Gita from a Krishna conscious point of view and taken the essence of those chapters so that it helps us practically. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, any questions, anything? Otherwise,